Pierre Astier is the founder and director of the literary and film agency Astier Perche. Pierre represents mainly French-speaking authors and French-speaking publishers. After having worked for 10 years in the art world, he created in 1988 the quarterly short story magazine Le Serpent et Plumes. In 1993, together with Claude Tarrène, he set up the eponymous publishing house Le Serpent et Plumes, focusing on contemporary fiction and starting with two collections, Fiction Français and Fiction Étranger, including Canadian authors, Timothy Finley, Margaret Atwood, and the American John Cheever. 1 year later, he created with Tanya Capron the paperback collection. Now, what do you mean by collection? Do you mean imprint?
Yeah.
Series? Is it your own publishing house that did this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a collection created in the publishing house, Les Serpent et Plumes.
I see, okay. Motifs, so the paperback collection Motifs, the collections Essais et Documents, Musique, Serpent Noir et Désordre were launched shortly thereafter. His literary and film agency was founded in February of 2006 with Laure Pecher, bonjour, associate agent and editor at Les Classiques du Monde, Editions Zoé. Welcome to the Bibliophile.
Thank you.
First question, how would you define the role of a literary agent generally?
Representing authors, helping them in their writing, in their creation.
So editing?
Editing, absolutely, that's the first step. Second step, finding a publisher in their language. So for French-speaking authors, the French publishers, or French-speaking publishers in Switzerland, Canada, or Belgium, or some other places.
The Francophonie.
The Francophonie, which is quite large, so there are lots of opportunities. Then translations, it's very important, finding translations.
So you would work with the best translators you could find?
No, we would work we would try to find publishers, so we go in many fairs, book fairs. We travel a lot, as I said. We were in Russia, Estonia, and Finland. We try to sell the foreign rights, translation rights, to as many publishers as possible in the world. And then there are the film rights, and Laure is in charge of the film rights, and then all the other possibilities for a text to be, read or listened, or So we consider then that today the writers need people aware of all the possibilities for a text to circulate in the world, and it has become rather complicated for authors to understand all those contracts, and that's the business. So I think that's mainly the job of an agent.
Okay.
To accompany an author in all his and her lives as writers. But also there's something else, which is that the authors are traveling a lot. They are invited in many fairs, festivals, and the agenda of an author today can become very complicated. So we try to help them accept or refuse invitations, just in order to have an international agenda and visibility and presence. So that's very important for authors today.
Okay.
Maybe it was not as important, let's say, 20 years ago. But today they are just invited everywhere.
Yeah, so I guess you would help them to parse all of the invitations and determine which ones were the best places to go for their reputation and their publicity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are the books, but there is also the author. What can we do with an author? An author is someone who writes, but also someone who speaks. and who can do conferences or, So that's something that has to be, we have to work it.
What about media appearances? Like, do you work with them on that, or is that up to
Not
the publishing
really.
house?
It's up to the publishing houses, yes.
Okay.
In each country.
Right.
But we try to be aware of what's happening in each country, and we request the reviews and everything.
And what about publicity itself? Again, that's the publisher, or do you get involved in publicity at all, or not?
Well, it's the publisher.
Okay.
No, we can't.
Okay.
Sometimes we ask for some more publicity, but it's up to the publishers, yes.
So really what you're doing is, protecting the author's interests and trying to make them as much money as you can?
Yeah, the question of the money is crucial, of course. But it's not an obsession for us. If we have an obsession, it's to find the best publishers. Okay. And sometimes...
the best fit for that author.
Yes.
Right.
And sometimes it can be a small publisher. We need to find publishers who work with passion and will push the book. Yeah. Sometimes you can be published by Penguin, but you can fall in a hole and nothing happens.
Exactly.
So,
you're just one of many, right?
Yeah. That's very important. That's why we have to know as much as we can the book markets in the world. And it's a lot of work because we consider that small book market can be very interesting, like Estonia, for example, where we were 2 weeks ago. But there's also US or, Germany. But we have to know those book markets, how they are organized, the big companies, the groups, but also the indies, the small companies.
Yeah, there's some excellent work coming out of all sorts of small presses these days.
Absolutely,
isn't there?
Absolutely. For example, in US, it will be easier for us to find a small company to acquire the rights, the translation rights of a book than big companies.
So how does that work then? The small publisher acquires the translation rights.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How does that work?
Well, it means that they will not pay maybe as much as a big company, but we know exactly what kind of work they will do.
Because they have good translators on staff, or they use good translators?
Yes, the editing will be excellent, but also because we know that they will push the book with the booksellers, with the, it's a different way of working, which is probably more, comment dit-on,
more involved or more passionate, I don't know. When they publish just 20 books a year, each book has to be a success.
They've got a greater risk and therefore a greater incentive to make it a better, more successful book.
Yeah, that's why the question of big or small companies, big languages or small languages, of course it's very important. But the most important thing for us is to find the editors who will be passionate and who will push the book.
The editors, by editors do you mean publishers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
publishers.
in French,
okay.
we have the problem in French.
It's slightly different.
Yes. Yeah, the small company that comes to mind for me is Archipelago.
For example, I was going to mention her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a client of us, yes.
It's an incredible success with Knausgaard.
Absolutely, and not only this Norwegian author, but some others also. She's very good, Jill. Yeah.
Who is she? What's her name?
Jill Schoolman.
Jill Schoolman.
And why is she very good?
For the reasons I said. She's behind each book passionately. Well, of course, in big companies also you can find people who have this kind of. But I don't know. She doesn't
very original choices. In big companies, they don't make original choices. They make choices. They choose a book, saying that it will be a success. We know that we will be able to sell 20,000 copies.
Yeah.
Jill, she doesn't do that. She says, I love this book, I know how to present it, to promote it, and I will do it.
Yeah.
And very often it works, because if she loves the book, probably other readers will like it. But in big companies, they say, okay, we will never find 20,000
They just want to make
readers.
money, it
Yes.
sounds to me like.
Yes,
And she's more interested in the quality of the literature.
yes. And probably the authors she chose, the big companies would have never chosen those books.
So you credit, although Knausgaard was hugely popular in Norway, but it's to her credit that he exploded throughout North America.
Probably, yes.
Absolutely. Well, and she's not the only one. You know probably Europa.
Mm-hmm.
When they brought Elena Ferrante to US, I mean, no one wanted Elena Ferrante before. I mean, no one of the American publishers.
Yeah.
And he made a very big success. So my feeling is that the public is always more intelligent than what we think. And when we hear some publishers saying, no, but this would not work because no, all those reasons can be totally wrong because the public is intelligent.
Well, the person who selected that book is intelligent.
Yeah.
The person who reads the book and
Yeah.
decides this is really valuable.
Yes, absolutely. I will take another example. When I was a publisher in France, Le Serpent à Plumes, I wanted to publish more African authors, French-speaking African authors. And the distribution was by Gallimard. And the distributor said, it won't work because no one is interested in African authors. Don't do that. We decided to publish 7 books in a month in different collections. And it was a very big success. And it probably changed everything in France for African authors. Because we toured all over France with them. Booksellers were very happy to welcome African authors, and it changed things.
When was that?
Oh, that was quite a long time ago. It was in
2002 maybe?
Okay.
beginning of the century.
Right.
And then Gallimard created a collection of African authors.
Of course, you'd already.
Yeah, of course, we
you'd
had
already
opened the way.
taken the path, and
Yeah.
I see.
And what I was saying at that time was the people want to read African authors.
It's not necessarily that they're African; it's just good,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and
Yes,
it's in
yes,
French.
Yes.
What about Quebec authors in France? Do you go out and get any Quebec?
Yeah, some of them are quite successful. But
Michel Tremblay, do you deal with him?
yes, Michel Tremblay, Catherine Mavrikakis, she's Greek.
Monique Durand.
Monique Durand, but Daniela Ferrière, of course, but he's from Haiti. Yes, they're successful. Yeah, more and more. And also in the suspense, there's one, what's his name, Senecal, who's quite successful
Okay.
France. But we have to go to Canada sooner or later. I mean, we've been there already, but we have to come back because I think there are very good authors, also in fantasy and some.
Yes.
That you need
So we
to,
have to go.
That gets to another question that I have, and it's why would you approach a particular author, and how do you, how do you approach an author? Like, how do you decide? Well, yes, we want to represent this author. So, is it word of mouth? Is it the fact that you do a whole bunch of reading? Like, what is it?
Well, up to now it's the agency is 12 years old. We haven't approached many authors. They have come to
you.
us.
Okay.
Mainly. But we are starting to approach some slowly.
Because you want to expand beyond.
Yeah, we would like to expand, and particularly we have a very international list.
Yeah.
But we would like to have more French authors. We do have quite a lot, but we would like to have more. Both of us, we like working on a text with authors, and we think we can bring something very, personal to a text and to an author. So we would like to. We can't do that with authors from Estonia or other places, of course.
It's really French. It's your natural language, and
yes,
that's
absolutely.
what you loved, obviously.
And you know what? We love doing that here in this place.
Well, it's called paradise, right?
It's a perfect place for doing that kind of work. Not Paris. Paris is too noisy, busy.
And here, I should mention, is right in the center of this gorgeous garden with stone walls and pebble. You may have heard you're shuffling your feet. That's the pebbles that we're sitting on chairs on. So you commute between Paris and this lovely town, which is how far away from Paris? It's an hour?
An hour and 20 minutes.
On the train?
On a train or by car. By
see.
car, 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Okay.
So it's not very far. Of course, we a little more. But we do stay here a lot from April to October. In the middle of winter, we come, of course, but not less. We stay in Paris more.
And to talk about authors, it's something new in France, or everywhere, with the narrative non-fiction. We can approach authors who actually are not really authors, but we ask them to write a book about one subject. And that's something we are doing
that's
more
quite
and
new.
more.
Commissioning books.
Even if they're not an author.
Yes, exactly.
So that you would be working with them, obviously.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We say, we would like you to write a narrative non-fiction on this subject. And
can you give me an example?
well, we've done it last year with an ecologue, I don't know how the word in
ecologist?
Ecologist, not ecologist, but the scientific part of ecology.
Okay.
And he is working on wolves. He's a specialist on wolves. So he wrote a narrative non-fiction on this subject, and we did it with him. And now we're doing another one this year with a young woman who had a very special life with her parents, who are
deaf and dumb.
Special life, and we asked her to write her life.
It's interesting. You're proactive then.
Yes.
We try to, but also there's something in the agency. Laure has a creative writing group twice a year.
A group? It's like a workshop?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a workshop. She started 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And the authors who have done this workshop start to be published now. So she's good. I don't do that. She's the only one.
I'm just stirring my espresso here. So how would you define the role of a literary agent in France, and how would that differentiate from a literary agent in the US and the UK? Any difference?
Yes.
What's the difference?
We have seen recently some American authors who have agents in California, for example, and California is far from all those European book markets, who are in a way booming,
The European book markets?
Yeah, particularly in Eastern Europe. When I say it's booming, I mean it has developed very fast.
And they're buying more books in translation, is
absolutely,
that it? Okay.
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely. So for us being in French and being in France, I mean, for us it's easier to understand all those new book markets.
Yeah, because you visit them, I guess.
We visit them,
yeah.
We go to the book fairs. And for an agent who is in California, it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
And there are a few authors in US who have started trying to have an agent in Europe, and that's quite new, I must say. It's a victory.
It's a victory?
No, well, I'm joking when I say that.
Yeah.
But I'm not totally joking. I think that, the American agents, from US, it's kind of an invasion we've had in the world of American authors. I'm sorry to say that because, well, you are Canadian.
Yes, so it's no sorry at all. Don't be sorry at all.
It has been an invasion. I mean, the publishing houses in France are full of American books. Where is the diversity? I mean, the world is much more diverse. So why are we condemned to all read, even if they are very good, the American authors? The diversity has to be, pushed. And so being an agent in France and doing what we do, and very interested in what's being published and written in Eastern Europe or Central Europe or the Arab world, or I don't know, it's just to find another equilibrium between what's coming from US and the rest of the world.
I think that's the case in so many sort of entertainment culture areas. Mm-hmm. But you look at the greatest novels ever written, in my mind, and you're looking at certainly at France with Balzac and Stendhal, and then Russia, of course, with Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and Gogol, and these are considered to be the greatest novels ever written, or by many anyway. Yeah. And yet, they're not all Americans, are they?
Mm-hmm. No.
And I think that's because of their commercial power.
Absolutely. All the marketing
but
methods.
But not only. In the 20th century, I think many of the greatest novelists were from America. They had great novelists.
Yeah, true enough.
But another big difference between being an agent in France and being an agent in North America is that the authors, usually in France, they send, their manuscripts straight to the publishers.
Well, then that used to be how it was in North America.
But now they send it to the agents, and the agents send it to the publishers. And in France, more and more new novelists send first their manuscript to the agents. Yeah. But it's just the beginning. Most of the novelists send their manuscript to the publisher, and when they have published 2-3 authors that start to be translated and published abroad, then they come to us and ask for help.
And has it been that the French publishers have been resistant to dealing with agents, or is it something else that stopped agents from becoming big here?
They have been resistant.
Very resistant. Some of them are still resistant.
They don't want to deal with agents.
No.
Because they see them as a middleman, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we do work with all French publishers.
Yes, I was going to say, that's interesting. You work with authors and publishers. Do you do the film rights for publishers? Is that how you work with the publishers?
Film and translation
Sometimes, yes.
Because usually you don't deal with publishers. You just deal with authors because you're sort of not an adversarial, but you're negotiating with publishers, and yet you've got both authors and publishers. Yeah. Do they do that in the United States? I don't know that they do.
No,
so much.
In France, when an author has a text and wants to sell the rights to a French publisher, the French publisher will acquire
everything,
world rights,
for
the life of the author and 70 years after that.
Well, no, they don't. Don't they just deal book by book? They don't have to, or the author doesn't have to sell everything. No. They deal book by book.
Book by book with
an option.
An option on 2 more books.
Okay.
A signed option. So an author is quite, blocked. And then the author will not control anything because the author will never sign a translation contract or a film contract. It's all in the hands of a publisher. Uh-huh. If it's a big publisher, someone who is correct, the author will be informed of what's happening. But sometimes authors are not informed. And that's the big problem today. And that's why more and more authors are willing to have agents, because they are not informed, just informed. That's a problem. And we tell them that the only way of being informed is to sign. If you give someone else
all the rights,
he or she will sign for you. So the only way is to sign.
Right. And when the publishing house signs a deal for a film, how much does the author get?
50% and sometimes less.
So the publishing house gets half of everything from the film.
Yes, and if there is an agent between, it means that you said it's unusual to represent authors and publishers, or publishing houses. But it's the same in the States. Sometimes big companies like Little Brown or Penguin or Random House, sometimes when they have the rights, they ask agents to sell the rights. For example, Anna Jarota in France, she sells all the rights of Little Brown and Random House, I think, in France. But for the film rights, if a publisher house handles the film rights, but they don't prospect because they don't know how to do it, so they commission an agent to do it.
Right.
So there is the fees for the agent too. So all the money has to be shared with the authors, the publisher, and the agent.
I see.
So the authors get 40%, the publishers 40%, the agent 20%.
Okay. And where do you come up with these numbers? Is this just the industry standard?
Yes.
Or?
Yes.
But who says that?
Will you forgive me if I go to the doctor?
Yeah.
Listen, oui, il est, à mon avis, à midi, ça ira. Là, je pars maintenant. Ça ira.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Listen,
I've got other questions here. I'll just continue.
You have lots of, so you continue with Laure. Laure is perfectly
capable. I can
capable.
see that. Okay,
yes.
Good.
So I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay? See you later.
So yes, it's a standard.
Standard, yeah, okay. And it's just accepted by everyone.
Yes, but more and more authors are understanding that when they have an agent and they sign, they don't give the rights to the publisher. They keep 80% and the agent 20%.
All right.
So of course now more and more prefer to keep their rights and have an agent, of course.
Of course, yeah. That's big. That's a very good reason to go with an agent.
Yes, and the same for the translation rights.
Yeah, I guess you've just answered my next question, which is why should an author do business with you? And that's one of the answers is they get a much bigger cut of the film rights and the translation.
But it's just one of the reasons, because another reason is the publisher in the big publishing houses, they change a lot. They leave a publishing house, go to another publishing house, and each year in August, September or June, you see all
musical chairs.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when an author is published by one publishing house and his publisher leaves, what should he do? Keeping the publisher or keeping the publishing house? And they are lost. So they come to us and say, help. When they start to be translated in many different countries, rights handled by many different publishing houses, they are lost.
I see. Yeah.
That's another reason. It's not just because of the money.
You coordinate everything for them. Plus there's a long-term relationship, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes in publishing houses, they don't have one person to contact when they need help. They have their publisher for the text, and someone else for the rights, and someone else for the medias, and someone else. So sometimes they don't have anybody.
Okay, moving along then. You make your money, basically, it's a percentage of whatever the author makes. That's how you make your money.
Yes.
Do you have to know any particular do you have an expertise in any kind of law?
Well, I studied a little bit law, but just 2 or 3 years during my studies. I studied more literature than law, but I have some expertise and I'm in charge of the contracts for publishing contract and film rights.
Okay.
But for very difficult deals, for example, when we deal film rights with an American producer, we ask a lawyer.
Okay, who specializes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We don't do it.
What's the biggest deal you've put together for a well-known American film?
I think we've never done. We almost signed an option with a big producer in North America. Actually, I think he was Canadian, but anyway, North American. But we never come to the deal. We never conclude the deal.
Okay.
So most of the film rights are sold to French producers.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a successful French film that made it into the North American market that you might have done some work on?
No,
Not that you're aware of.
not yet.
You've described your relationship, the relationship between you and your authors. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit. What is a typical relationship with an author like?
From the beginning, the classic one, he sends us his manuscript. We start working with him, saying, okay, this manuscript, you should change something, you should work more on this part, this character, blah, blah, blah. And then when we think the manuscript is over, is done, we decide with him to which publisher we will send the texts.
Okay.
So we give our opinion, of course. He gives his opinion, her opinion, and we decide all together to send the manuscript to 5, 6, 7 publishing houses.
I see.
If he doesn't have a publisher, if he has a publisher already, we see if he wants being published by this publishing house or if he wants to change. But we decide. Then we send the manuscript, and then we organize meetings with the publisher who wants to publish, and if they both agree to work together, we negotiate the contract. So we try to explain to the author all the different points of the contract because they don't understand anything. And actually it's getting more and more difficult. That's why that the French contract, before it was very simple compared to North American publishing contract, which are awful. The French one was more simple, but now since 2 years it became much more difficult. So we have to explain to the author all the different choices he has when we negotiate a contract, and then we sign the contract, and then we have to control what's coming after. It means if there is a problem with the cover of the book, if he doesn't agree with the title, with the cover, and then with the media planning, and then everything, we are behind. We try not to be too present because the publishers, they don't like to have us
interfere. Yeah.
Yes, so we interfere only when there is a problem or if the author is ashamed or don't want to ask.
So you become pretty friendly, I guess, with a lot of your authors too, I imagine.
Yes, with some of them, not only. We try not
to get too personal.
Yes,
okay.
But of course,
business.
Yes,
but it's difficult not to if you're fighting for the same thing.
Exactly.
Together.
Yes, but we say always, the agent is an agent, a friend, a psychiatrist, and everything.
Yeah, that's right. I've sort of asked this, but what is your greatest success, and who have you made the most money for?
Well, I have no idea. Probably, I don't know if it's the one we made money. But very interesting case, because very new in the agency. It's a Macedonian author. Because it's a very difficult language when we represent an author from Macedonia.
Yeah.
And he came with his novel a few days, 1 week before the Frankfurt Book Fair, the big fair.
Okay.
With his novel. And we say, okay, we will represent you and we will present the novel in Frankfurt, but it won't be on our list because it's already printed. So we'll do our best.
In Macedonian?
Yes.
In any other language or not?
No. We had just it in Macedonian, which was pretty hard. But he won in Frankfurt the European Literary Prize, which helped a lot. And at the beginning of the fair, one of our first meeting was with an important Brazilian publisher, and we presented the few titles we wanted to present, and at the end of the appointment of the meeting, she said, okay, that's interesting, but there's just one novel that I want, it's this one. And she showed the flyer we had on our table on this Macedonian novel. And I said, okay, I can
But she hadn't even read it.
No. And
it's just because it won the prize.
He won the prize, and the pitch was very attractive. And I said, I can send the book. And she said, no, you don't have to, because I don't read Macedonian.
That's
but
right.
I will make an offer.
Wow.
And the author was present at the fair. He was attending the fair. And I said, okay, but be quiet. We have not the offer yet. And a few hours later, I had the offer on my email sent by her assistant from Brazil. And then we sold the rights, I don't know, in 28 countries in a very short time.
All at Frankfurt or not?
No, but not in Frankfurt, but
because of?
Yes, because of Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And that was very surprising, because the best offer, which was a very good offer, came from a Brazilian publishing house. And I don't know, it was in 2008, maybe 2009, and it was the very beginning of all those markets, the new markets, who were able to make very important offer and to compete with other countries. Yeah, and that's probably was the most interesting situation we had, because we never thought it could have been such a success.
But you have no idea how good the translation in Brazilian or Portuguese or whatever it is. You have no idea how good that or how faithful that translation was to the original Macedonian.
No, when they do it, actually, I think that for the Brazilian translation, they made it from the English translation, because then Penguin bought the rights and many different publishers.
From you?
Yeah, we sold the rights in 28 countries.
Okay.
And we sold it for the English language. It was Penguin US who bought the rights.
And I think they translated into English, and then you think the Brazilians translated from the English.
From English or from French, I don't remember actually.
Okay.
But they probably did not make the translation from Macedonian to Portuguese.
How does a pitch for a book to a publisher differ from a pitch to a film production company?
Oh, it's very different. When we pitch to a producer, we never talk about the writing. We never say, okay, it's a very well-written
They don't care. They
book.
care
They
about
don't
the plot,
care.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes when the publishing house, the French publishing houses handle the film rights, that's something they did not understand yet, that when you are have a meeting with a producer, don't talk about the writing, just talk about the plot. And with French agents, we have now a union of French agents,
literary agents. Okay.
And we had a training, a workshop about this subject just 2 weeks ago, to help us to pitch to producer. When we pitch to publishing houses, we talk, of course, about the plot, but about the writing and about how many copies he sold in France, or his previous book have been sold,
right.
How many translations around the world. All the commercial arguments are a bit different.
Okay.
Producer, he doesn't care. If the pitch is good, he wants to read.
If the plot is exciting and gripping.
Yeah, and it's a bit disappointing with the publishers now that less and less we talk about the book.
It's more about the commercial potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
sad.
A bit disappointing.
Who's the best literary agent ever?
The best literary agents ever. We have some Models, I think that Andrew Wylie, who has a lot of critics, I think he's great, because when we see his list, it's a great list, international list, very quality. It's not bestsellers. He say high quality books, high quality novels, very international. Yeah, I think he's a great agent. But probably he has some commercial technique, the technique commerciale, the technique. He's tough, maybe too tough.
Well, yeah, he squeezes as much as he can out of the publishers, that's for sure. And he's bumping up all of the advances for the authors like that, but the publishers don't, I guess.
They don't have to follow. They just have to say no. If they wanted to play the game, that's their faults. But he has a great list.
Yeah, so many well-known authors, great authors, yeah.
But I know that he is French, Georges Borchardt in the US, and he represents a lot of great, but he used to represent, maybe, I think he's quite old. Georges Borchardt.
And he was originally French, you say?
I think so.
And he went to the States?
Yes, but when he was very young.
So you've mentioned that Wylie is tough. What else makes him great?
His list.
He's got the list, but how did he get that list?
I don't know.
I mean, it must be his reputation for getting a lot of money for his authors. That must be one of the main things.
Yes, probably. The authors know that when they are represented by this agent, their royalties
will go up.
And advance and everything, of course. But I think he knows sometimes when we see the authors he chooses, it's before they are getting famous sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes he take them
once they become famous.
Yes, but very often it's before, and that's very interesting because it means that he understood who could become great authors.
Yeah.
And sometimes he makes strange choices. His French authors, for example, I never understood why he has chosen these French authors, because I think they are not especially the best French authors. At one time, he had our former president, Nicolas Sarkozy.
Yeah.
That's strange.
His wife is a famous singer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Some people don't think she sings very well. But
I don't know. I don't like her too much, but she maybe is not so bad.
You mentioned the Macedonian novelist. What are you most proud of having achieved as an agent?
One of the first success of the agency, it was made by Pierre, who found out an author published by a very small publishing house in south of France. And the same, he sold the rights in many countries. And that's the thing we can do, to find authors who are published in small imprints or even in big imprints, but not translated yet, because probably nobody understood that he could be translated or he could have an international career.
Yeah.
And that's something we're very proud of, to be very international, to be very present in every market, and to promote our authors everywhere. And when we choose an author, it's because his international potential. I don't know if we can say that.
You can,
yeah.
As opposed to selling all the rights to your local publishing house. What you're suggesting again is, the author should sell it to the French publisher, keep all the international rights, and have you guys sell them directly to each country, because it's way more remunerative, or whatever.
Yes, and probably more efficient too. For instance, Erdoğan this year, the Turkish woman writer novelist published in France by Actes Sud, Erdoğan, yeah.
The same as the...
Yeah, but not the
Not
same
related?
because she spent 5 months in prison because of
So
her
definitely
writings.
definitely
So
not related.
Not the same family.
Okay.
And when she has been in jail, Pierre immediately, when we learned that she was in jail, informed everyone around the world to say, be careful, Aslı Erdoğan is in jail. And now, 2 years after, of course, she's not in jail anymore. She's in Frankfurt, welcomed by her German publisher, and she is protected. She's all her publishers, all her translators, all her readers were very involved in defending her rights and reputation. And
just getting her out of prison, you mean?
Well, getting her out, I don't know why she went out. Maybe, the president, we don't exactly know how he acts and his logic. But now she is very, very famous, much more famous than she was before getting into jail. And that's thanks to Pierre, I think. Mostly thanks to Pierre, because he said the only thing we can do is to alert everyone, to inform everyone, so everyone can know that an important Turkish writer is in jail because of her writings. And that's something we can do, and we can be very good in doing that. And in Frankfurt 2 years ago, we organized something during the fair with all the journalists around the world, or publishers, the president of the fair, and all together with a media conférence de presse.
Press conference, yeah.
A press conference with a very important audience.
And she's your client then?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does she write?
She writes novels and poetry, so it's very literary. It's not so easy. But she wrote, if she was in jail, it's because she worked in a Kurdish newspaper or a newspaper magazine in Turkey, very involved in the Kurdish cause. And now there is a collection of her articles published everywhere, in Germany, in France, not in US. In US, it's her novel. 2 of her novels have been published in US.
Who's your favorite author and why?
Right now, we have my personal author, probably right now, but it can change every year if we have another great book, is novelist from south of France, Marie Neuser, who writes thrillers, but with a very literary writing. She's a literary writer. It's very difficult in France to make understand that you can write literary books with genre, what we say the littérature de genre. But she's absolutely great. She's powerful, like a Greek tragedy, with this very important, not only plot, psychological writing and everything. And I think right now it's my favorite.
And her name again?
Marie Neuser.
How do you spell that?
Neuser.
And has she been translated into English yet or not?
Not yet, and I hope she will be soon.
Okay. We've touched on this before, but obviously the advance that a publisher pays is an important consideration for whether or not you're going to go with that publisher. Specifically, what else do you look for?
We talked about patience a few minutes ago, and that's very important because sometimes we have bad experience with important advances and the wrong publisher.
Like what?
Like what? Like a publisher who offered probably 5,000 more than other publishing houses, and then when they publish, as we said, 12 books the same month, they just don't do anything. They just see what's happening, and when one of those 12 books comes out, so they move. But if your book is not this one, nothing happens. And after a while we say, okay, maybe if we have sold the rights to another publishing house, maybe with less money, the sales would have been
much
more,
better.
yes, and that's always difficult choice. We had the same problem this year with a literary book sold to a not so literary publishing house, but they offered more money, and with the novelist, I think we made the wrong choice. So sometimes the money is not the good advisor.
Yeah, sounds like it's the passion you're looking for.
Yes, and the right title with the right publisher, with the right publishing house at the right time.
Yeah. So a lot of it's luck.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it all about the writing when you decide to represent an author?
Our agency is literary agency. Our choices are very literary. But when we have, let's say, some thrillers, mysteries, or detective stories, maybe we're looking more at the plot than the writing.
It's still part of the writing, though.
Yes.
Is there anything other than the writing that... Is it all about the writing, or is there anything else?
No, I think it's
all about the writing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Who are a couple of your best-known authors?
Best known in France or abroad or...
Both.
Right now, Erdoğan, the Turkish writer, is probably the
best known.
The best known. Götze Smilewski, the Macedonian. We have another, I can't give the name right now, but to be published in next October, who's very, very famous in France. We have to keep it
quiet. Okay.
Quiet.
Is it one of those examples where you've approached someone to commission them to write?
No,
okay.
He came to us.
Is he an author or is he just...
He's an author.
Okay.
And a journalist, and he's a famous person who has been who had a bad experience before with publishing houses, media, because he said something, he put himself in danger in the intellectual Parisian scene. So now he said, I need advice because I have not to do the same mistakes that I've done before.
Can you get into that mistake or not? What can you say that would, and what do you mean by danger? His life?
No, not his life, his intellectual life.
his reputation.
Yes. Now we are giving some advices not to because he's young and he's...
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that in October. What about internationally? Is there someone that we would know in North America or not so much? Erdoğan, maybe.
In North America, we have Patrice Nganang, who is published by FSJ. He's a professor at the university, but I don't remember which one.
What's his name again?
Patrice Nganang. He's American from Cameroon. He writes in French, and he's published by FSJ.
And what does he write?
Oh, it's novels, literary novels, historical novels, something like, I would say, like, Garcia Marquez, with a lot of characters, with a lot of stories in the stories. It's about Cameroon.
How long does it take for you to tell if a manuscript's any good?
A few minutes to say that it's not good, but the problem is between the not good and the good. That's a problem. But I would say that when we don't leave a book thinking that, okay, I will check it later or I will read it later when I have time, when we don't leave it, when, at 2 o'clock in the morning...
When you can't stop reading.
Yes, when at 2 o'clock in the morning you're still reading the book, you know that it's probably a very good one. Okay. The problem is all in the middle. When we start a book, you say, okay, it's interesting, not enough to
keep me reading.
Keep reading.
Yeah.
But you say, okay, I will read it again when I will have time, and you never have time.
I see. Okay.
So you leave it.
Okay.
And when you have some hesitations, you know that the publisher will have the same hesitation, and probably the reader. When you don't hesitate, when you say, okay, I want to read it until the end, you know that probably the reader and the publisher will have the same reaction.
Same reaction, yeah, okay. What's the best advice you've ever received from anyone?
As an agent, to
Just
best
in your
advice,
life.
just
In your life.
in our life. I can say that the better advice comes from Pierre to me: never give up. Never give up, because he never gives up.
That's great.
When a publisher say no to a text,
Mm-hmm.
he will present it to another publisher, then to another one, then to another one, and sometimes it takes years, but he never gives up.
What do you love about being a literary agent?
I did not choose this job because it was Pierre's idea. When we stopped with the publishing house, I wanted to start a new one, and he said never again. It's too difficult. Let's be agent, because we need agencies in France. So I never chose this job, but I would say that the most exciting part of the job is when you find a great manuscript, when you read a great text and say, wow, I have something in my hands and I can help these author. And that's great when you don't have talents. It's great to help people who have talents. That's the greatest part of this job is probably this one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest parts of what I do too. Is I'm happy to come here and to talk to you and hopefully have other people listen to us talking about something important that you're doing. So thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me.
You're welcome.
I have been speaking with Pierre Astier and Laure Pecher, who are co-founders and directors of the literary and film agency Astier Perche in their garden in Moutier au Perche. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thanks, too.